Alright. Who is the Dragonlord? Let's check it out.
Dragonlord Placidusax.
Placidusax. Cool.
Having the lowest completion rate among the bosses with achievements tied to them, Placidusax is one of the strongest and most well-hidden bosses found in Elden Ring. As the leader of the ancient dragons and a wielder of red lightning, he presents many implications about Farum Azula, the outer gods, and maybe even potential plot points for future DLC.
Cool.
If we want to make sense of the story of the ancient dragons, then their leader and the presumed true first Elden Lord may hold the answers. Spoilers
He's very
ahead.
cool.
Dragonlord Placidusax, whose name probably comes from the word placidus, which is Latin for calm, can be found within crumbling Farum Azula. The player reaches this place by defeating the fire giant and kindling the giant's flame. Somehow, the act of kindling the giant's flame, usually through the sacrifice of a maiden, seems to be what can transport us to Farum Azula.
Usually.
Note that the only other NPCs that you can find here are Bernal, whose maiden threw herself into the fire, and Iron Fist.
Oh wait, usually. Does that mean that you can choose not to sacrifice her and find another way to light the fire? Because I'm pretty sure you were given a choice. It's like, alright, burn. Let's get it done now. I'm just gonna imagine there is another way. You don't need to tell me how. I'll do it in another playthrough. But, I'm just imagining there's probably another way to light it. This game has so many avenues you can go through. That's crazy.
Fist Alexander, who probably had the remains of at least one maiden inside of himself that could be used as kindling after the battle with Radahn, and he was last seen in the area that hides the giant's flame. There's a weapon that you can find earlier in the game called the Ruin's Greatsword, which reads, "Originally rubble from a ruin which fell from the sky. This surviving fragment was honed into a weapon.
Cool.
The ruin it came from crumbled when struck by a meteorite. As such, this weapon harbors its destructive power. This ruin in the sky refers to Farum Azula, and a meteorite was responsible for its crumbling state. The
cool.
Greatsword's weapon art also utilizes gravity magic, which is commonly used by other creatures that arrived in the lands between through meteorite impacts. These include the Onyx and Alabaster Lords, the Falling Star Beasts, and Astel. We're going to try to construct a timeline of events related to Farum Azula and Placidusax, so let's keep this meteorite impact in mind for later. Throughout Farum Azula, hostile beastmen can be found in varying states of decay. Their corpses can be found in ornate graves, built into the architecture, or, in some cases, being seemingly cannibalized by the other beastmen.
Hell yeah.
The Azula beastmen ashes, found on one of their graves, reads, "Spirits of beastmen from doomed Farum Azula, the slowly crumbling ruins in the skies." These ruins are said to be the remains of a giant mausoleum enshrining an ancient dragon, guarded by chosen beastmen who wield weapons clad in lightning. This item tells us that the beastmen guarded Farum Azula and the ancient dragon it enshrines, pointing towards cooperation between the beastmen and Dragonlord Placidusax. Another item that refers to the Dragonlord is the Old Lord's Talisman, a legendary talisman depicting the ancient king whose seat lies at the heart of the storm beyond time. It is said that the ancient royal city of Farum Azula has been slowly crumbling since time immemorial.
Oh, sad.
Notice that this talisman features a dragon with 4 heads.
Oh,
the
so maybe he's
final item
lost
description
too?
we'll look at before the Placidusax fight is from any of the Draconic Shield talismans. The ancient dragons, who ruled in the prehistoric era before the Erd Tree, would protect their lord as a wall of living rock. The beastmen, the ancient dragons, and the mausoleum itself were all tools to protect the Dragonlord. Yet, Placidusax is nowhere to be found. The only way to find him is to locate the heart of the storm beyond time. Along a hidden path at the bottom of Farum Azula, you can find an unoccupied beast grave that you can lay inside of. Time begins to reverse, and you find yourself in the heart of the storm with the leader of the ancient...
So that's where that cutscene's from. I saw that in another video and I was like, what's happening here? I haven't seen this. Great.
Dragons, frozen in time.
Yeah, like if you look along here, it looks like he used to have more heads. Like a Hydra. This was probably another head, and there might be another thing on the other side.
Dragonlord Placidusax shows the ability to control red lightning, vanish into storm clouds, and breathe destructive, golden...
Oh, he had 3? Looked like he was supposed to have 4. But there is definitely a spot here where he should have had another head. Like Eudora? Yeah.
Flames. He's already noticeably damaged, and he's missing 2 of the 4 heads depicted in the Old Lord's talisman. If you can defeat him, you receive the remembrance of the Dragonlord. The Dragonlord, whose seat lies at the heart of the storm beyond time, is said to have been Elden Lord in the age before the Erd Tree. Once his god was fled, the Lord continued to await its return. Placidusax has been hiding outside of time until the player finds and defeats him. The reign of the God of the Dragons was likely marked by this alternative version of the Elden Ring that is depicted in Malekith's boss arena in Farum Azula, and could have ties to the primordial version of the Erd Tree, the Crucible.
Yeah, this statue.
Whether this god was the Greater Will or some other unnamed outer god, their abandonment seems to be a key event in the downfall of Farum Azula. But the question remains, what exactly ended Placidusax's reign? Obviously, the absence of their god contributed to the ancient dragon's fall, but Placidusax shows signs of being defeated in a physical battle. A plausible reason for this could be the War of the Ancient Dragons. In the royal capital Leyndell, the corpse of an enormous ancient dragon lies across a huge section of the city. We know this to be Grandsax, whose invasion of Leyndell triggered the war against the dragons. The Golden Order's version of the Elden Ring hidden within the capital was probably coveted by the dragons that ruled before the age of the Erd Tree, giving reason for their invasion and the necessity for the Golden Order's retaliation. The Tree Sentinels and Godfrey's Crucible Knights were among the forces that attacked Farum Azula. Godwyn, the demigod offspring of Queen Marika and Lord Godfrey, defeats the dragon Fortisax during this war and would befriend his fallen foe. Placidusax's wounded body was likely caused by a battle against the Golden Order's forces. After this war, the forces of Leyndell came to a conclusion, as stated by the Gravelstone Seal. The worship of the ancient dragons does not conflict with belief in the Erd Tree. After all, this seal and lightning itself are both imbued with gold. Fortisax's friendship with Godwyn, the reverence that Leyndell had for the power of the dragons, and the end of the war with Farum Azula would give way to the capital's dragon cult being formed. Fortisax's sister, Lanciax, would serve as a priestess to this cult. And
a bitch ran away. I don't know where to. I imagine you can find them somewhere and kill them, but I never found them. But he got away.
There's evidence that the cult was already being formed before Leyndell's forces even returned to the capital. Also note that the dragon head in the Dragon Temple resembles Placidusax's unique head shape.
Oh yeah, okay. Oh, that's sad. Oh. You know, when I did fight that one dragon and they flew off, I was so convinced that I was gonna have to fight it in different stages while going up. You know? I thought that I was gonna have to fight it in different stages, but I guess not. It's not like the map is that big. Yeah, right? Jesus.
Shape. Life goes on for the ancient dragons and Leyndell. Temples for the worship of dragons arise in both Farum Azula and the lands between. The elder dragon Grail would give birth to a new generation of dragons
that was a sad fight. That was sad as hell. Oh man, I really cheap shotted this guy. Holy moly.
While feeble compared to the ancient dragons, are much more commonly found throughout the lands between. Dragons are still revered to this day, as shown by the practice of dragon communion and Godric's obsession with the true-born heritage of the dragons, but their age has long passed. Farum Azula is perpetually crumbling, and it seems that the curse of Godwyn's infection has somehow partially taken over.
Killed the kids.
It's likely anyone who travels to Farum Azula arrives at a similar point in time. If we operate under the assumption that Malekith and Gurranq are the same person, which you're free to agree or disagree with, Malekith's unique dialogue with the player if they have completed his quest, and the fact that he still exists in the player's world after the boss version of him has been killed, supports the idea that everyone arrives at the same point in Farum Azula's disconnected timeline. However, Placidusax remains at the heart of the storm, forever awaiting the return of his god and the reign of the dragons. Now, as confusing as it may be, we can try our best to construct a timeline of these events. First, Farum Azula exists outside of time and is partially built from the graves of the chosen beastmen that would act as its guardians. The ancient dragons would rule with their own version of the Elden Ring, and Placidusax is the Elden Lord. At some point, the god of the ancient dragons leaves them, which I personally believe to mark when Farum Azula joins the natural flow of time. Because of this, a meteorite is able to strike the floating mausoleum and leave it perpetually crumbling. The age of the dragons ends, and the age of the Erd Tree eventually comes to take its place.
Rude.
As part of a plan to restore the rule of the dragons, Grandsax leads an assault on the capital, but Leyndell would retaliate with a war against the dragons. Placidusax and the dragons are defeated, and Fortisax and Lanciax would support the rise of the capital's dragon cult. Now, probably due to the actions of Placidusax, Farum Azula remains outside of time once more, but instead of time flowing only for Farum Azula, it now seems that time only flows for the lands between, as everyone who travels to Farum Azula after the war seems to arrive around a similar point in time.
And then we show up and we kill absolutely everyone. Because why not? I also still say Estus all the time. Man. Oh, Sean. That's true. That's so true. Yeah, imagine all these like characters that you play in games just absolutely destroying dozens and dozens of beings and lords and gods and stuff, and you're just that one guy, and people still choose to fuck with you. People still choose to fuck with you. You'll kill gods, and like mercenaries will run up and just be like, yeah, this is worth the coin. Yeah, sure, okay. I'm a god slayer, but alright, yeah, I'll take you, peasant. Jesus Christ.
Godwyn's infection spreads. Finally, the player's arrival and confrontation of the Dragonlord brings an end to Placidusax's legacy. This may be a bit convoluted, especially since time manipulation is involved, so I may have gotten at least a few details wrong along the way. If you have any further evidence or insight to this sequence of events, I would love to hear about it in the comments.
Yeah.
Other pieces of evidence throughout the game could be tied to Placidusax as well. Stormvale was once ruled by the one known as the Stormlord long ago, and we could maybe draw a connection between that and the Lord of Farum Azula due to its theme of storms. On a final note, From Software has been known to often include time travel as a part of downloadable content in their recent game.
You hear that? Time travel. DLC. That's what I thought. We'll see. We'll see.
With an outer god that may be able to control time, is it possible that this power could become important for future content? We could maybe learn more about the lands between before the shadow.
Yo, this was awful. This was awful. Oh my gosh. Remember how happy I was when I finally killed Gale? Oh my gosh. Gale was really something else. Definitely one of the harder bosses I have fought. Definitely one of the harder bosses that I have fought. You keep misremembering him as being harder than he was? In 8 tries? Doesn't matter, he was still difficult. It was still, like, to my brain, difficult. You know? Like, his fight style stressed me out. Same with Sister Frida, though. She stressed me out a lot, too. It's true, I did over level for sure. The Nameless King. Which one was the Nameless King again? Hold on. Let's finish this video and then we'll...
Shattering, as there's so much story that could be worked with for that concept. On that note, that's all I have to say about Dragonlord Placidusax. But as always, it's great to hear your thoughts on the video or its topics. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Oh yeah, that guy. I remember the Nameless King. Oh. I mean, wasn't the worst. Nameless King wasn't the worst. No, I remember this guy. I fought this guy. I played pretty much the entirety of Dark Souls 3 with a claymore that I found at the beginning of the game. I generally used a claymore and a great shield. And that is how... Oh god, my stomach. I'm so hungry. Madeira is the only boss that I haven't beaten. Oh my god. I need to get some food in me. I haven't eaten in hours. Holy shit. Did I not fight Champion Gundyr? I don't know. I don't remember either. It's been a hot minute and a half. No, Gundyr and Champion Gundyr are kind of different. Kind of.